and welcome. I hope you're having a great and wonderful day. Welcome to Daring Dialogues. This is our Thursday edition, Thinking Thursday, Theology Thursday. I'm your host tonight, Shantae Charles. Just letting you know, we are airing on our YouTube channel, Church Love 333. We are also airing on our IG, Daring Dialogues, as well as our podcast, Daring Dialogues, through anchor.fm. So tonight we are cracking back open Black Theology and Black Power by James Cone. If you don't know who James Cone is, let me refresh your memory. James Cone was a Briggs Distinguished Professor of Theology at Union Theological Seminary. He is the author of many books, including God of the Oppressed, A Black Theology of Liberation, and The Cross and the Lynching Tree. He is now the late James Cone, and he is known as sort of the founding godfather of Black theology. So we are reading this section. We are actually closing out chapter 1, and we're looking at the section, How Does Black Power Relate to White Guilt? Black Power and the White Liberal. And hopefully we'll get a chance to read all the way through to Black Power, Hope, or Despair. So we're going to jump right into our reading tonight because I want to make sure we have enough time for some conversation. How does Black power relate to white guilt? When white do-gooders are confronted with the style of Black power, realizing that Black people really place them in the same category with the George Wallaces, they react defensively, saying, "It's not my fault," or "I am not responsible." Sometimes they continue by suggesting that their town, because of their unselfish involvement in civil rights, is better or less racist than others. There are two things to be said here. First, there are no degrees of human freedom or human dignity. Either a man respects another as a person or he does not. To be sure, there may be different manifestations of inhumanity, but that is beside the point. The major question is the Black man in white society a thou or an it? Fanon puts it this way: a given society is racist or it is not. Statements, for example, that the north of France is more racist than the south, that racism is the work of underlings and hence in no way involves the ruling class, that France is one of the less racist countries in the world, are the product of men incapable of straight thinking. Racism, then, biologically is analogous to pregnancy. Either she is or she is not. Or like the Christian doctrine of sin, one is or is not in sin. There are no meaningful in-betweens relevant to the fact itself. And it should be said that racism is so embedded in the heart of American society that few, if any, whites can free themselves from it. So it is time for whites to recognize that fact for what it is and proceed from there. Who really can take it upon himself to try and ascertain in what ways one kind of inhuman behavior differs from another, especially if one is a direct participant? Is there, in truth, any difference between one racism and another? Do not all of them show the same collapse, the same bankruptcy of man? Second, all white men are responsible for white oppression. It is too much and too easy to say racism is not my fault, or I am not responsible for the country's inhumanity to the Black man. The American white man has always had an easy conscience. But insofar as white do-gooders tolerate and sponsor racism in their educational institutions, their political, economic, and social structures, their churches, and in every other aspect of American life, they are directly responsible for racism. It is a cold, hard fact that many flagrant forms of racial injustice, North and South, could not exist without whites' acquiescence, and for that they are responsible. If whites are honest in their analysis of the moral state of this society, they know that all are responsible. Racism is possible because whites are indifferent to suffering and patient with cruelty. Carl Jasper's description of metaphysical guilt is pertinent here. There exists among men, because they are men, a solidarity through which each shares responsibility for every injustice and every wrong committed in the world, and especially for crimes that are committed in his presence, or of which he cannot be ignorant. If I do not do whatever I can to prevent them, I am an accomplice in them. If I have not risked my life in order to prevent the murder of other men, if I've stood silent, I feel guilty in a sense that cannot in any adequate fashion be understood, judicially or politically or morally. That I am alive still after such things have been done weighs on me as a guilt that cannot be expiated. In contrast, injustice anywhere strikes a sensitive note on the souls of Black folk because we know what it means to be treated like a thing. That is why Fanon says, quote, anti Semitism hits me head on. I am enraged. I am bled white by an appalling battle. I am deprived of the possibility of being man. I cannot disassociate myself from the future that is proposed for my brother. Yes, when blacks in Chicago hear about blacks being lynched in Mississippi, they are enraged. When they heard about Martin Luther King's death, they burned, they looted, they got whitey. In fact, when blacks hear about any injustice, whether it is committed against black or white, blacks know that their existence is being stripped of its meaning. Amy Cicere, a black poet, put it this way, quote, when I turn on my radio, when I hear that Negroes have been lynched in America, I say that we have been lied to. Hitler is not dead. When I turn on my radio, when I learn that Jews have been insulted, mistreated, persecuted, I say that we have been lied to. Hitler is not dead. When finally I turn on my radio and hear that in Africa, forced labor has been inaugurated and legalized, I say that we have been lied to. Hitler is not dead. White America's attempt to free itself of responsibility for the black man's inhuman condition is nothing but a protective device to ease her guilt. Whites have to convince themselves that they are not responsible. That is why social scientists prefer to remain detached in their investigations of racial injustice. It is less painful to be uninvolved. White Americans do not dare to know that blacks are beaten at will by policemen as a means of protecting the latter's ego superiority as well as that of the larger white middle class. For to know is to be responsible. To know is to understand why blacks loot and riot at what seems slight provocation. Therefore, they must have reports to explain the disenchantment of blacks with white democracy so they can be surprised. They must believe that blacks are in poverty because they are lazy or because they are inferior. Yes, they must believe that everything is basically all right. Black power punctures those fragile lies, declaring to white America the pitiless indictment of Francis Jensen. If you succeed in keeping yourself unsullied, it is because others dirty themselves in your place. You hire thugs, and balancing the accounts, it is you who are real criminals. For without you, without your blind indifference, such men could never carry out deeds that condemn you as much as shame those men. Black power and the white liberal. In time of war, men want to know who the enemy is, who is for me and who is against me. That is the question. The asserting of black freedom in America has always meant war. When blacks retreat and accept their dehumanized place in white society, the conflict ceases. But when blacks rise up in freedom, whites show their racism. In reality, then, accommodation or protest seems to be the only option open to the black man. For 300 years, he accommodated, thereby giving credence to his own enslavement. Black power means that he will no longer accommodate, that he will no longer tolerate white excuses for enslavement, that he will no longer be guided by the oppressor's understanding of justice, liberty, freedom, or the methods to be used in attaining them. He recognizes the difference between theoretical equality and great factual inequality. He will not sit by and wait for the white man's love to be extended to his black brother. He will protest violently if need be on behalf of absolute and immediate emancipation. Black power means that Black people will cease trying to articulate rationally the political advantages and moral rightness of human freedom, since the dignity of man is a self evident religious, philosophical, and political truth, without which human community is impossible. When one group breaks the covenant of truth and assumes an exclusive role in defining the basis of human relationship, that group plants the seed of rebellion. Black power means that Blacks are prepared to accept the challenge and with it the necessity of distinguishing friends from enemies. It is in this situation that the liberal white is caught. We have alluded to him earlier, but now we intend to take a closer look at his involvement in this war for freedom. To be sure, as Lauren Miller says, there are liberals and liberals, ranging from left to right, but there are certain characteristics identifiable in terms of attitudes and beliefs. Simply stated, liberalism contemplates the ultimate elimination of all racial distinctions in every phase of American life through an orderly, step by step process adjusted to resistance and aimed at overcoming such resistance. In the field of constitutional law, the classic liberal position, exemplified in the Supreme Court's all deliberate speed formula of school segregation cases, requires and rationalizes Negro accommodation to and in acquiescence in disabilities imposed because of race and in violation of the fundamental law. The liberal then is one who sees, quote, both sides of the issue and shies away from extremism in any form. He wants to change the heart of the racist without ceasing to be his friend. He wants progress without conflict. Therefore, when he sees blacks engaging in civil disobedience and demanding freedom now, he is disturbed. Black people know who the enemy is and they are forcing the liberal to take sides. But the liberal wants to be a friend, that is, enjoy the rights and privileges pertaining to whiteness and also work for the Negro. He wants change without risk, victory without any blood. The liberal white man is a strange creature. He verbalizes the right things, he intellectualizes on the racial problem beautifully. He roundly denounces racists and conservatives and the moderately liberal. Sometimes, in rare moments and behind closed doors, he will even defend Rap Brown or Stokely Carmichael. Or he may go as so far as to make the statement, I will let my daughter marry one. And this is supposed to be the absolute evidence that he is reckless or raceless. But he is still white to the very core of his being. What he fails to realize is that there is no place for him in this war of survival. Blacks do not want patronizing, condescending words of sympathy. They do not need his concern, his love, or his money. It is that which dehumanizes, it is that which enslaves. Freedom is what happens to a man on the inside, it is what happens to a man's being. It has nothing to do with voting, marching, picketing, or rioting, though all may be manifestations of it. No man can give me freedom or help me get it. A man is free when he can determine the style of his existence in an absurd world. A man is free when he sees himself for what he is and not as others define him. He is free when he determines the limits of his existence. And in this sense, Jean Paul Sartre is right. Man is freedom, or better yet, man is condemned to be free. A man is free when he accepts the responsibility for his own acts and knows that they involve not merely himself, but all men. No one can give or help get freedom in that sense. In this picture, the liberal can find no place. His favorite question when backed against the wall is, what can I do? One is tempted to reply as Malcolm X did to the white girl who asked the same question, nothing. What the liberal really means is, what can I do and still receive the same privileges as other whites? And this is the key: be liked by Negroes. Indeed, the only answer is nothing. However, there are places in the Black Power picture for radicals, that is, for men, white or black, who are prepared to risk life for freedom. There are places for the John Browns, men who hate evil and refuse to tolerate it anywhere. Last section: Black Power, Hope or Despair. White racism is a disease. No excuse can be made for it. We blacks can only oppose it with every ounce of humanity we have. When black children die of rat bites and black men suffer because meaning has been sapped from their existence, and black women weep because family stability is gone, how can anyone appeal to reason? Human life is at stake. In this regard, black people are no different from other people. Men fight back. They grab for the last thread of hope. Black power, then, is an expression of hope, not hope that whites will change the structure of oppression, but hope in the humanity of black people. If there is an expression of despair in black power, it is despair regarding white intention or white promises to change the oppressive structures. Black people now know that freedom is not a gift from white society, but is rather the self affirmation of one's existence as a person with certain innate rights to say no and yes, despite the consequences. It is difficult for men who have not known suffering to understand this experience. That is why many concerned persons point out the futility of Black rebellion by drawing a contrast between the present condition of Blacks in the ghetto and the circumstances of other revolutionaries in the past. The argument of these people runs like this: revolutions depend on cohesion, discipline, stability, and the sense of stake in the society. The ghetto, by contrast, is relatively incohesive, unorganized, unstable, and numerically too small to be effective. Therefore, rebellion for the black man can only mean extermination or genocide. Moreover, fact one is that many poor blacks, being poor for so long, have become accustomed to slavery, feeling any form of black rebellion is useless. And fact two, that the black bourgeoisie, having tasted the richness of white society, do not want to jeopardize their place within the structure. This analysis is essentially correct, but to point out the futility of black rebellion is to miss the point. Black people know that they comprise less than 12% of the total American population and are proportionately much weaker with respect to economic, political, and military power. And black radicals know that they represent a minority within the black community. But having tasted freedom through an identification with God's intention for humanity, they will stop at nothing in expressing their distaste for white power. To be sure, they may be the minority in the black community, but truth, despite democracy, can never be measured by numbers. Truth is that which places a man in touch with the real, and once a man finds it, he is prepared to give all for it. The rebellion in the cities, then, is not a conscious, organized attempt of black people to take over. It is an attempt to say yes to truth and no to untruth, even in death. The question then is not whether black people are prepared to die, the riots testify to that, but whether whites are prepared to kill them. Unfortunately, it seems that answer has been given through the riots as well. But this willingness of black people to die is not despair, it is hope, not in white people, but in their own dignity grounded in God Himself. This willingness to die for human dignity is not novel. Indeed, it stands at the heart of the faith. I have read for you. We have finished up chapter 1 in the book, Black Theology and Black Power by James H. Cone. Highly recommend this book. He has kind of set the pace and set the tone for our conversation tonight, which we are having via IG on Daring Dialogue. So if you want to hop over there, if you're on YouTube and you want to see us have the conversation, you can join us there, or you can continue on our YouTube right now. All right. Sorry about that. So if you want to respond to what James Cone is talking about, he gave a couple of different ideas here. He talked about the white liberal, why they might feel the way they feel, and why they might feel torn about where they stand with Black people. As he said, Black people do not want patronizing, condescending words of sympathy. He also talked about how does Black power relate to white guilt? And James Cone says clearly that Black people cannot, white people cannot be held guiltless. That if you are participating in the systems, you hold some measure of guilt. And then we end it with Black power, hope, or despair. So let's see who we have in the conversation queue. All right. If you are listening by anchor.fm, I want to thank you for your time and attention. I will be posting a question for you on Anchor, and please feel free to respond to that question. Until next time, have a great evening. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am good. As the woman that I love so much, Miss Jane Elliott, put it, you white people are racist. They're indoctrinated into it.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's up to them to decide whether they want to be that or not. But that's not done by words.
Right.
That's done by actions. It's not just simple actions. If you're not willing to die for an oppressed people, just step aside. Don't even play the game. That's basically what it amounts to. Don't even play the game. If you're trying to hold on to your white privilege, you're trying to split the line, step aside. Don't even play the game. And you're actually doing more harm than good.
And I think that's going to be true for probably millions, right? Millions of people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I've come to a conclusion. Well, I'm not just saying I came to a conclusion because I already knew, but it's been proven beyond a shadow of a doubt. Number 46, and I keep telling people, well, I've been telling, but I told them, I said, listen, they want to talk about, well, he did come out and speak up for the Haitians. I said, no, he didn't.
No.
Not when he needed to. Not within the 24 hours of it happening. A whole week? Come on, step aside. Miss me with the foolishness.
Mm-hmm.
If you were really concerned, as soon as it happened and you found out about it, you would have come on and spoke. Within the first 24 hours, I would give you 48 hours. But a week? Come on, miss me with that.
Well, they did. Someone, I forget who it was, but someone brought up his former conversation about the nation of Haiti. Like at one point, and I saw the video, he actually said, in terms of the big picture of nations, he was just like, if Haiti would just sink into the sea, it really wouldn't matter much. I mean, that was his thoughts on Haiti. And I don't think that those thoughts have changed because it is Jim Crow Joe.
Right. But see, and this is the thing. Didn't Haiti help America win a war?
Yeah.
Yeah, they did.
They did. I mean, and without Haiti, we would not have part of the United States. We would not have had the Louisiana Purchase.
Right. So you disregard. That's the thing that I can't deal with the foolishness. I really can't. I can't deal with the foolishness.
Yeah.
Now, yes, but they also kicked America's butt when America tried to join up with France to keep them oppressed. Yes, they did.
Mm-hmm.
Let's face it. Like Great Britain said, okay, you're talking about your freedom, but yet you're oppressing these black folks.
Mm-hmm.
You want to keep them as slaves, but yet you want your freedom.
Right.
See the hypocrisy? Apparently, in this country, when it comes to white America, hypocrisy has no shame. I'm serious. I mean,
right.
it's so the hypocrisy is so obvious that you can't miss it. And it's like, well, I'm being blatantly hypocritical because it's like, okay, this is what we want for us. See, this is us. Oh, but y'all can't have this. See, you know, it's a completely different thing. No, you wanted your freedom.
But this has been kind of the consistent behavior of America. It's always, we're going to make sure we're free, but anybody else trying to get freedom for themselves is a problem. Or something is wrong with them, or they're demonized.
Right, but who are the real demons?
Especially when some of the very same tactics that other nations are using to acquire their freedom, the United States has used. To me, that's where it becomes a glaring, obvious thing. Like, you claim to be fighting tyranny, to be released from the bonds of tyranny of a king in order to form America. But when other people in other nations are doing the same thing, you're like, oh, we gotta tamp this down. It's like, don't you realize your own history?
Yeah, but see, that's the thing. Selective amnesia. You know, listen, it's okay if we do it, but nobody else. If somebody else do it, then we got it. Then it's demonic. Yeah. You know, I didn't hear anybody else calling for angels from Africa.
You know, that the irony of all of this is, I'm reading this book, and let me put it up here again before somebody doesn't realize I'm reading from a book. Okay. I'm reading from a book entitled Black Theology and Black Power by James Cone. It's amazing that we're reading this, and it's as if he wrote it for 2021.
Exactly.
And this was written, the original copy of this was 1969. 1969, 2021, we're still having the same conversation. We're still engaged with a generation that holds the same views as their forefathers and their previous generations, which tells me that their conscience, in many ways, we could say their conscience is frozen, or their conscience is on ice, because they haven't moved from this same mindset. And I'm talking about white America. They haven't moved from the same mindset of, we will get to you all when we determine you've had enough. So this is with laws, this is with funding, this is with repair financially, this is with what's the other piece? You got funding issues going on, you have reparations issues that need to be addressed, you have the rolling back of civil rights, pieces of the civil rights legislation that has been gutted. And so rather than this generation saying, we're going to move it further, we're going to move further in the direction of equality, this generation has kept the frozen state of their mind, but they've done more in this generation to undo what the previous generation marched for. And to me, that is dangerous. That a lot of Black people don't realize that their conscience in many ways has been frozen, but they have moved forward or moved backward the hand of equality while their conscience is yet in the same place.
Yes, and that's dangerous. It's dangerous for us, but we see it, we know it. But that's dangerous for people, for those that don't see it or don't recognize it. Because what that does, it puts you in a place to bow down to what they're coming with, to repeat what our ancestors went through.
Right. And so again, this is something that we've talked about before in terms of them trying to take us back to a place of re-enslavement. And that does not necessarily mean that you're going to be put back in chains. But if you're locked out of markets, if you're locked out of the economy, if you're locked out of jobs, it presents the same effect. It presents the same effect because our ancestors coming out of chains were not able to enter job markets, which is why many of them wound up returning to the plantations to get into an unequal system of sharecropping because they could not get into the economy at that point. So the measures that are being taken are sending us backwards. And I don't know why it is that when I'm live, everybody by now, I've been doing this 5 years. Everybody by now knows that I'm on at 6 p.m. But yeah, everybody wants to send me messages when I'm on. You're disrupting my broadcast.
Yeah. And but you said something earlier that brings us back to 46 again. Because I told somebody, I said, listen, this man is Trump. Bottom line, he's Trump. He just knows how to get done what Trump didn't know how to get done.
Well, I mean, we can just rewind the tape from before the election when we were having these conversations, and I was telling people he is the exact same thing, just on a different end of the spectrum.
Right. He's the other side of the coin.
He is
the same coin.
Right. It's the same coin. He is the White Citizens Council side. The side that takes their pen and does the same thing that the person with the rope would do on the other end. Same thing. Same thing. So, in terms of that news that just came out, we saw that there is a proposal on the table for the amount of the HBCU funding that was promised to be slashed to almost a bare minimum, right? And this is a problem. This is very problematic. Very, very, very problematic. 46 has been in Congress 40 plus years. Exactly. And so again, if you looked at his record in Congress, you had to ask yourself, why were people so eager? Why were people so eager to bring him into a presidential seat of power when he hadn't really done a whole lot in Congress, really, to move us forward? It did not make sense to do that. But people went ahead with it, right? There was lots of fanfare around this choice. There was lots of pressure from the Black bourgeoisie around this choice. And I think even some of them now are seeing the results of this choice. It was definitely not the best choice, but here we are, right? Here we are. So, Lady Barbara, if you want to invite yourself in, you can invite yourself as well, and we'll bring you on at this time. I know you got cut off. It's okay.
Yeah.
But what I was saying is that we knew that he was on the other end of the spectrum. We warned people that he was on the other end of the spectrum. The Black bourgeoisie, what they call the Black bourgeoisie, the elite class of Black people, were just pushing. Oh, we got to vote for him. We got to do this. Yes. Come on. Our girl is going to be in there. We got to do this. We got to do this. We got to do this. And I just put it out there. I hope you know that he's on the other end of the same spectrum. His record clearly showed he is on the other end of the spectrum.
And he's still showing it.
Right. And if he spent 40 years in Congress not really advocating and moving things forward for Black people, what made us think he was all of a sudden going to turn over this new leaf and do more for us? Like the report that came out, I think it was supposed to be $45 billion that was promised to HBCUs for funding. In his new financial proposal, his new bill, he cut that down to $2 billion. How do you go from $45 billion to $2 billion? I'll tell you how you do it. You put some of the money over for other ethnic groups and their issues.
Yes.
You move some of the money over for gender issues. And that's how Black people once again get shortchanged. People step on Black people's backs to use them for their political capital. And then when they get in, they give them pennies for the capital that they used. And again, this keeps happening over and over again through that particular party. Now, I will say this, and I was sharing with someone the other night. I said, the issue is Republicans know what to do with power. They just never do it for us.
Not for us.
Right.
No.
Democrats don't know what to do with power because when they get in, they're all over the place. Their agenda is all over the place. They're trying to hit too many things. Republicans actually have a game plan. It's a game plan of evil. Okay.
Yes.
Let's be clear.
Yes, it is.
But they do have a game plan. They know we've got to control seats of power that creates policy that protects our interests for the next 100 to 200 years.
Yeah.
And we don't care about anybody's feelings or their complaints about our plan. We're going to do our plan. The Democrats, not so.
I got one more thing I want to elaborate on, because you hear something there.
And then
Now, I've been telling people want to speak about reparations, this country can't afford it. But you can afford $69 billion per day for war.
Yeah.
You can afford that. We don't have to be in anybody's war.
Yeah.
But you can afford that. You can afford $617 billion per day for the military. That's not including the $69 billion per day for war.
Yeah.
See, you can afford all that, but you can't afford, you don't want to pay reparations.
Right.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
That's it.
And here's the thing, and I'm going to put it out here again, because one day somebody's going to come back and listen to all these videos, and they're going to be like, them black people show told us the truth.
Yes. This is true.
I'm going to put it out again. Until this country does right by Black people, until they pay our debt, because people often talk about the indigenous community, and yes, they still owe a debt to the indigenous community, but they have at least given them something.
Exactly.
They've given them lands. They're giving them millions of dollars yearly. There's a millions of dollars yearly allocation that goes out to them. For Black people, they have yet to do jack. And so until this country rectifies its debt with the descendants of the formerly enslaved, until they rectify that debt, they're going to always be having to pass a bill to increase the debt limit, because they won't rectify morally, nor spiritually, nor financially. They have yet to rectify the debt to us.
Exactly.
And so they can keep skirting around that all day long. They can keep on running around the track. But if this country ever wants to see itself in balance with God,
yes,
and if it ever wants to see itself balance a budget ever again,
wait a minute.
you need to do right by us. And they're not trying to hear that.
Amen.
Pastor Shante, isn't this country God?
No.
You could listen. The way some of these people think and the things that they do, I mean, it's like, well, put it this way: white America is God. Okay.
Yeah.
But the way some of them speak and what they, how they say. I'm gonna say this and I'm done. But I was speaking to somebody today, and I was talking about how they've always gone up against, Latin speaking people saying speak American.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, well, Spanish and French are American.
Right.
You have North America, which consists of the United States and Canada, which is a French speaking country.
Mm-hmm.
And you have Central America and South America, which speaks Spanish.
Right.
So that is American.
Well, the other piece,
English.
Is those languages were here before English. So that's the other thing.
They were.
But Lady Barbara, I want to give you an opportunity to share what you thought about tonight's reading, because I know we're coming to our close soon.
But the only thing that I was listening as you was reading was the fact that we still in this place of denial of the treatment of Black people in this country. That's always, that thing was where you was talking about the liberals, and I would allow, a Black, certainly Carmichael or Rat Brown to marry your white daughter. I mean, it's just such, the game. Pastor Ben said the same thing, the mind game and the games you play, and you yet abuse, you're watching the suffering of people, but you want to say, I want to dip over here and pretend with you for a while. And then I got to still maintain my status of what I'm accustomed to. And I know y'all suffering, but I don't want to see that part. But can I just, like kumbaya with you? And some people are doing that. And as you were talking, I thought about Charleston, South Carolina is what resurrected this man's campaign. Mm-hmm. And so all of those he went to an African American church, and he said, I'm going to remember y'all. Mm-hmm. Right.
He remembered us all right. And again, as we conclude this talk, we are reading from Black Theology and Black Power by James H. Cone. And we're talking about chapter 1, his section on the white liberal and what that has actually meant. And we're just making the parallel that a lot of what he shared in 1969 is still true today in 2021. To me, he is one of the clearest voices for what we are seeing today. I'm so thankful for his writing and his work, because he lays it out very plainly. Yes, we have Black writers and authors these days, Black intellectuals, but many of them are afraid to lay out in their writing exactly what is going on with the white liberal. James Cone does not mince words. So if you want to kind of get a little bit about that mindset and what it's doing, how it works, how it operates, how they will be on your side but not in your corner. Isn't that what they say? You being on my side is marching with me in the street. Being in my corner is making sure the policies that have oppressed and kept my people down for over 400 years, that those get obliterated. Yes. And that new policies are put in place that push my people forward for another 400 to 1,000 years. You may be on my side, but you're not in my corner. And we have to stop fooling ourselves about what it is that we're seeing. When people show you who they are, believe them the first time. That's what the poet, our ancestor, Maya Angelou said. Believe them the first time. So this has been another episode of Daring Dialogues, and I've been your host tonight, Shantae Charles. Final thought, Pastor Ben?
We need to wake up.
Exactly.
Final thought, Lady Barbara?
I concur. Awakening.
We're gonna keep on pressing these topics. We're here tomorrow. Tomorrow again, we are looking at the whiteness of wealth, talking about the tax system. So if you are interested in finance, you're interested in budgeting, you're interested in wealth building, that's what our conversation is going to be on tomorrow. We will also be in the book Get Good with Money. So we'll be doing 2 book readings tomorrow. This has been another episode of Daring Dialogues, and I've been your host, Shantae Charles. Remember, light is the most daring opposition to darkness. Our job here is to shed light on important topics through truth, and we do it through reading. So if you are a bibliophile, if you want to join us for the read alouds, again, that book was Black Theology and Black Power by James H. Cone. We are going to be in this book for a minute. We're also reading from White Too Long on Thursday nights by Robert P. Jones, and he is diving into the evangelical connection to white nationalism and white supremacy. So those are the 2 books that we'll be reading on Thursdays. Again, Friday is going to be The Whiteness of Wealth, and also Get Good with Money by Tiffany Aliche. Thank you all for your time and attention. Please go out and be what, ladies and gents?
Light.
Light.
Be light. Thank you all so much. Take care.
Good night.
And God bless.
Good night.
Thank you for tuning in.